And the award for the best postman of the past century. Here are the nominees. The first nominee, Kevin Costner, for his grippy, inspiring story, delivering a remarkable performance. Second nominee, Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, a truly heartfelt, loving story. And the last nominee goes to, I'm blanking on his name, but legend has it, Bill Tobin hired him after the 1994 NFL Draft.
It's a team that needed a franchise quarterback to pass up a Trent Dilfer when all you have is Jim Harbaugh.
You didn't say that. You did not say that.
The Oscar goes to Mel Kiper.
Who in the hell is Mel Kiper, in a way?
Love him or hate him, the GOAT is back. We got a Mel Kiper mock draft. This is after the first week of free agency, and he's got his predictions all ready to go. And you see from the thumbnail, I'm assuming Jaxson Dart is going to be in this one. It's going to be crazy, right? Who will land Emeka Egbuka, Jaxson Dart, Mykel Williams, and Mason Graham, and many more. He's got his instructions. Feel free to pause it. I read through them. He just basically said we still got a lot of the quarterback names to fall and all that sort of stuff, but there's been a lot that has changed, and we need to go over. Here it is, though. The Tennessee Titans at that number 1 overall pick. They're going Cam Ward, the quarterback from the Hurricanes. He is a Hurricane out there with the way he plays. I love his arm talent, that little flick, that little velocity. He's got that sidearm raptor that I like. And quarterbacks that are so much fun. Like Brett Favre, one of my favorite quarterbacks watching as a kid. That sidearm flip that he had, man, was always fun to watch. And Cam Ward has some of that to his game. And for the Titans, clearly they need a quarterback. It is tough taking a quarterback in this draft class. You might say in prior years, I definitely feel confident in saying that it would be more comfortable taking one of those quarterbacks at the number 1 overall pick. But Ward, certainly a guy that's come up the ranks, is from our former wing T offense to what he is now. He has been drastically improved player year over year over year. And for the Titans, as I mentioned, a quarterback is such a big need for this football team. You got to take a swing. It makes a lot of sense. And then on to the Cleveland Browns, Abdul Carter, the Penn State edge rusher. Hey, if you pair up Myles Garrett and Abdul Carter, it's game over for any division. Like, I don't care if you've got Trent Williams, 2 Trent Williams on both of those sides, because that's what you're going to need. Like, even with 2 Trent Williams, you're still going to have trouble containing Myles Garrett and Abdul Carter off the edge. That's how good this duo would be, and I really do like it. And now you get one guy who's on a cheap contract, a cheap 4 or 5 year contract, and then you got Myles Garrett as the second highest paid non-quarterback now that Derek Stingley just got his $40.25 million. Overall, though, if you're going to go and get Abdul Carter here over a quarterback, maybe you go get a Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers or trade for Kirk Cousins. Those are all on the tables. Myles Garrett's a little getting happy there because I think he already knows who's going to be the quarterback. Maybe he's hinting at a Shedeur Sanders scenario or one of those veterans to come over here. So that's still something we have to keep an eye on. But for right now, I'm okay with this one until we know exactly going into the draft. Do they pick up a quarterback in free agency? Are they going to rock with the Kenny Pickett ticket? I don't know. But for right now, I do like that pick. The Giants, they go Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback from Colorado Boulder. He's hopefully bringing a franchise QB to this team. Brian Daboll's asking for some help. He needs some better quarterback play to give himself an opportunity so he doesn't get fired this season. And Joe Schoen has built a really good roster. And that's why I almost say I'm kind of rooting for him as well, because I know Joe Schoen gets some hate. And there are some moves where it's kind of like, head scratching at times. But overall, I think he's done a really good job at building a very good roster. And if you can find your franchise quarterback, this is a team that legit could get to the playoffs very, very quickly. This is a very, very solid and talented roster. I like Shedeur Sanders. And if that's where you're at, then you got to take a chance on a quarterback. Heading over to the New England Patriots at number 4, Travis Hunter, the best player in the draft. You can make the argument, him and Abdul Carter, very, very close, neck and neck. Travis Hunter would more than likely be a receiver for this New England Patriots offense because their offense, well, they need more receiving help. And you see what they've been able to do in free agency mainly resolves around the defense. What about the offense? What about an option for Drake May, whether it's a pass protector or a wide receiving pass catching option? They need both. And it would be a good start by getting Travis Hunter. And I'm all on board with that. If he falls to you number 4, that's the easy selection. That's running to the table. That's a done deal. And then we go on to the Jaguars. More than likely a done deal as well. I mean, I'm not going to call it a done deal, but I would say 90% chance that this one happens in the actual draft. Mason Graham at number 5. Great player. Yeah, you may be saying to yourself, does he have the high-end elite traits of a Quentin Williams or a Jalen Carter? Possibly no, but the film is so good. He gets off blockers consistently, knows how to use his hands. He's quick enough to get in the backfield and be a disruptor as a pass rusher. He is going to be a very, very high floor prospect, whoever gets him. And for the Jags, they have a lot of young talent, possibly with Mason Smith, who turned it on at the end of the season. Jordan Jefferson showed some nice flash, especially in run defense. You got Tyler Lacey as a rotational player. You got Devon Hamilton as a nice run defending, run stopper in there, but you need somebody else. You need an identity. And I think that with Eric Armstead, too, you got to factor him in, but he's getting a little bit older now, and he can also play a little in and out on that defensive line. Mason Graham is a great addition to stamp all that defensive line once and for all. On to the Raiders. The Boulder, Ashton Jeanty, another Boulder. He is a legit Boulder over at Boise State, but I know what you're all saying here. Do you take a running back at number 6 overall? Are you crazy? But here's my thing on this. I think Jeanty is worth this pick, and especially if you're looking to have an identity to run the rock. Ashton Jeanty, all he does is break freaking tackles, man. And I'll tell you this right now. When he gets to the NFL, somebody give this man a deal in the morning for breakfast or something like that, because I bet when he gets up, and you know how KFC has the 11 herbs and spices seasoning? I bet Jeanty has his own spices and herbs seasoning that you could sell a break tackle. It'll just make you break tackles even more. I don't know what he does, but Jeanty's a different type of animal out there. I like the pick a lot. And ideally, of course, maybe you can trade down a little bit, get some extra draft capital since they have so many other needs, and then still select Jeanty to be a workhorse with superpowers in that offense for Geno Smith. And then we go on to the Jets. Tyler Warren, a tight end, pass catching, quarterbacking, offensive lining, linebacker, plays everywhere. Extraordinaire, Tyler Warren. I see what this pick is for this Jets team. It comes down to, there's multiple areas this team could go, really, at the end of the day. They could go after Tet McMillan. You could look at right tackle and Armin Embu. I think makes a lot of logical sense for this team, especially right now where they're at right tackle. Is it Chukuma Okorafor? Is it Max Mitchell? Is it Carter Warren? There's a lot of options there, but none I feel super confident, so I could see that right tackle. You got bookend tackles. However, you look at Tanner Ekstrand and what he did and what he wants to do, I imagine, for this as the new offensive coordinator for the Jets and AG as the head coach. Hey, they had a beastly tight end over there in Detroit, right? They got Sam Laporta. Let's go get a beastly tight end of our own and Tyler Warren. I'm really fine with this one. He is a really good player. I still love the idea of getting Armin Embu. Or one of those tackles, right? To bookend tackles for the first time in a very long time as a Jets fan. I'm vibing, man. And as a Sharks fan and a Jets fan, I'm looking for something, right? I think the worst teams in both hockey and the NFL. Hockey's probably my other sport. I really like hockey a lot. And again, I picked the Sharks, even though they were good. They were good for a while. But what's going on out here? We got to get it together. And hopefully we can do that. Tyler Warren will be a nice start for a pick for the Jets there in this new regime. On to the Carolina Panthers. Jalen Walker, the edge rusher, hybrid linebacker for the Panthers. I don't love this pick. I'm much lower on Jalen Walker. He has really good athleticism. He has really good traits. I have no doubts about him as a leader and what he meant to that Georgia defense. So all those things you put aside, I definitely agree with that. But if you're talking about strictly as an edge rusher or as a linebacker, I get concerned, right? As a linebacker, if you're playing this guy as a linebacker, his coverage ability was not that good, in my opinion. I thought he was very lost with his zone coverage. As an edge rusher, he's very raw, getting off blockers. And I just think that power right now, these strong guys, the longer defenders, when they get hands on him, it's really over for Jalen Walker. He doesn't have a whole ton of finesse to his game right now. And those are things you can develop. But as a top 10 pick, I think you can get a lot more production out of James Pierce Jr., Mike Green, those type of guys I'm looking at first and foremost over a guy like Jalen Walker. I think Walker is more of a back end of the first round, second round, ideally, scenario that has a guy with a lot of upside, but he's going to need some development, right? Nolan Smith fell to the end of the first round. I feel like that Jalen Walker should fall further in that range, right? He has that level of upside, but he needs a year more than likely to be a developmental guy, get stronger, get more articulate with his pass rush. I'm using big words today. Woo, man. But I like the positioning, I guess. On to the Jaxson Dart. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Those are my favorite pets.
Unbelievable scenes. We're on the Mel Kiper. Woo! Rocking it out here. You can tell I'm stuttering out here. I gotta calm down. Give me some blowers. Give me some fans. Give me something out here. I'm gonna get water.
Oh, snap!
But overall, I just really can't get on board with this pick. I would much rather go with an offensive lineman here, build an offensive line before you get Jaxson Dart in here because, hey, the one thing he did struggle with too at Ole Miss a lot, when you look at the games where he went up against big competition, tough competition like South Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, teams that could get pass rush on him, he really struggled with that pressure. He's coming into an offensive line that was one of the worst pass blocking offensive lines and has been for quite a minute. So to me, that just doesn't seem very smart. So he would be a guy that I would not want to start right away for this New Orleans Saints team. He would be a 2-year type of developmental project as we're building the offensive line, as we're getting him together to get ready for this, this system and everything like that. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong on that. I told you in my quarterback rankings, this might be the pie in the face scenario. I just don't quite see it. So that's my opinion, and that's where I'm at. But I got nothing but the best wishes for Jaxson Dart and what he ends up being because he's got a lot of talent and a lot of tools to work with. I can't do it, man. I really can't. Let me know your feedback on that one. I don't know. That's not for me personally. I'd be going after an offensive lineman before I do that. And then we go into the Bears. Mykel Williams, the Georgia pass rusher, edge rusher, very much a toolsy prospect. Unfortunately, had some injuries this season that kind of derailed him a little bit and stunted his growth. However, you see flashes of it. Really good run defender. Needs to work on that pass rushing toolbox. The Bears, they're just saying to themselves, why not? We got Deo Dengba. We got Montez Sweat. We got Austin Booker. Let's go add in another beastly pass rusher that can develop over time. We don't need him to be a day one impact. And that's fine. I'm okay with this one. If you really like Mykel Williams, if you're in love with this guy, the Bears have a very, very solid roster. They can really just go BPA, the guy that they deem to be the best fit, the culture fit for them. So if they say, look, this is our dude, we believe in this guy, then I'm all for that. I'm still higher on Pierce and Green and guys like that. At the end of the day, though, once again, the Bears, if they feel good about it, then I'm good with it as well. On to the 49ers, Armin Embu. I love this pick. If he falls to number 11 for the San Francisco 49ers, I know that they really haven't drafted first-round offensive lineman, it seems like in a minute. Well, going back to Mike McGlinchey, right, and a long ways ago, what pick number 9 or something like that they got him at top 10. This would be their first premium pick that they spent on an offensive lineman in a minute. I mean, they've gotten some guys on day 2 and stuff like that, but first-round pick in a while, and Armin Embu, I think, would be worth it. And a guy that is in the same athletic profile as the guy that they have right now in Trent Williams, right? Only of one of 4 to do that for going back and for over the past 10 plus years or whatever it's been. So with his athleticism, a 34-inch vert, and he had like a 4.91 40-yard dash time. Listen, all around, the dude's athleticism, his traits. I do think he needs to get a little bit better with his hands, clean up some inside stuff. Those are things you can fix pretty quickly, and maybe does lunge a little bit over often and gets off balance at times. But in general, the dude is a phenomenal prospect with so much upside. I love that at their right tackle. You can move McKivitz inside the guard. You're booming there. Cowboys, oh my goodness, Amarian Hampton, running back North Carolina. They go get their final Zeke replacement here with Amarian Hampton. He is going to be their new workhorse. You picked up Miles Sanders, Javonte Williams in free agency, both on 1-year contracts, cheap deals. You go get yourself that guy who's going to be that workhorse in here in Amarian Hampton. I don't know if I love the value at number 12 overall. Like, I like Genty in the top 15. Just not quite there with Amarian Hampton. Hampton is a really good prospect, and maybe this draft class pushes running backs into this conversation. I don't know, and it's very possible. I just would say this is a little bit high for me. If you can trade back, get into like the 20s or somewhere in that range, if that's possible, and get one of these backs then I would be much cooler with that, because I still like Travion Henderson. I like Caleb Johnson and a lot of these guys on day 2, and you go even further than that. There's some really talented guys, RJ Harvey, Brashad Smith is a day 3 guy, like you name it. Like, there's some guys who have a lot of interesting talent. Hampton is a different being, right? I think he can be a full workhorse, though, and that's going to be hard to find even on day 3 in this draft. Finding workhorses, typically you find those guys first, second round, and maybe in the 3rd round. Hampton has all the skill sets to do that. It just, again, that's a little bit high for me. It is a little teeny high. I love the boldness, though. This is Mel Kiper at his finest. Miami Dolphins go Will Campbell, the tackle / he could move inside the guard. I would keep him at tackle. Personally, I still think he can hang a tackle. He's a good athlete. He was in that conversation with those 4 guys. Either way, like, I'm cool however they want to play him, whether it's guard, tackle. I think he could be the long-term left tackle depending on how Patrick Paul looks in this sophomore season. Like Patrick Paul wasn't super on Patrick Paul, but he's got a lot of talent, a lot of upside. He was really more of a developmental guy right now. Like, got to clean up those hands, right? Get him more inside. Like, he's kind of like clawing it out here. I'm not talking about like get smart. Like, he's got the claw, but yeah, he's gonna boom, pop it in a little bit more. Not claw, woo, I'm like, it's like going like this out here. So it is what it is. I like the pick though. Going none with the claw. On to the Indianapolis Colts, Colston Loveland, right? The Colts, Colston, let's bring it on over here. They go get themselves a tight end. He'd be an ideal fit for Shane Steichen in this offense. They love tight ends. They use 2 tight end sets as much as anybody in the NFL. One thing I will say, if we're playing devil's advocate, because they may go other areas in tight end, it's possible. And a guard could be one of those, absolutely. Matt Gonzalez could move inside there, but he could also be just a swing tackle, and they want to rock with him for another year, developing behind Braden Smith. So guard like a Tyler Booker or a Gray Zabel, certainly on the table for this New Indianapolis Colts team. And then defensively, I wouldn't rule out a Mike Green or a James Pierce Jr. pick here either. Just imagine you go into next season with Kwity Paye, Laiatu Latu, and Mike Green or, James Pierce Jr. off the edge. You got Taquan Lewis and Isaiah Land. You get some other guys out there, but you lost Deo Dangbo. So those pass rushing snaps got to go somewhere. You know what I mean? Definitely options. I wouldn't hate that either. I love Colston Loveland too. I think that'd be a really nice pick for them. And then we go on to the Atlanta Falcons. They go edge rusher Mike Green. This is a run to the table. I know he's got some character stuff people talk about going back to Virginia and why he left there. So those are things you have to question. Is that something you look for in your locker room? Is it going to be a problem? If you feel like it's behind him and he's moved on and everything's going smooth, he's gotten good reports lately and everything like that, and you like him, then it's, on field, he is one of the best pass rushers in this draft, just strictly as a pass rusher. What he brings to the table, got so many plethora of pass rush moves, and with his burst and athleticism, yeah, this is an easy pick. And then on to the Arizona Cardinals. Will Johnson. I've thought about doing this pick myself, actually, because you look at this cornerback room, while you've drafted and you're trying to develop some guys, you got Elijah Jones coming back from injury this year. So that'll be kind of like basically another draft pick this year in a way, because him coming in will help you out. You got Max Melton, who you drafted a 2nd-round pick at. You've got some young guys like Garrett Williams as a star slot corner. I think they could easily move on from Sean Murphy-Bunting after this next season. So if you get Will Johnson in here and then you have competition for that second spot between Mad Max and then Elijah Jones on the other outside cornerback position, it's certainly in the table, right? You got Star Thomas too with some depth there. Overall, I don't hate this one because their secondary does need like that final number 1 piece. Do they have a true number 1 cornerback in that room? Probably not currently. I mean, Garrett Williams maybe is their best corner. I would say he is their best corner. On to the Bengals. We go Shamar Stewart, especially with those trade rumors burking up and Trey Hendrickson. I think they'll end up working it out. I just don't think they're going to let him go. He's too good of a pass rusher. How do you replace a guy as good as Trey Hendrickson? Overall, I like the value here, even if Trey Hendrickson is still on the team, because they could use more pass rush with Joseph Asai, Miles Murphy. Hard to find athletes like this, right? He's in the tier of conversation of Myles Garrett, Mario Williams, those type of athletes, Jadeveon Clowney's. Those guys typically, even if they don't hit like unbelievable, they're still good football players. And I'll let you read if you want to read some of that. Definitely feel free to pause that there and read some of the Mel Kiper notes. And then we go on to the Seattle Seahawks. They go Nicky Manwari here, South Carolina. They go get themselves their Kyle Hamilton. Mike McDonald says, hey, I want this guy who's ever versatile, adding into the secondary. And he's not going to take away snaps from Kobe Bryant or Julian Love in that back end. He's going to play in that hybrid box role as a player that, especially in nowadays where big nickel has become so popular, this would be a really good pick. I don't mind this one at all. He's a great player. He's going to go somewhere inside the top 25 more than likely. He's the best athlete, probably pound for pound in this entire draft class. And his tape backs it up as well. I mean, you go through Nicky Manwari and his film, he is just littered all over, making play after play. He can fit the run. He's explosive coming downhill. He's a ball hawk. There's just not many things you can't really say about the guy. He's maybe a little tight-hipped at times, but overall, like the role you're going to play him in, he's going to be such a menace. And then the Bucs go with Jahad Campbell, the linebacker from Alabama. I could totally see this one because right now, their linebacking core is a little thin. I mean, you got Levante David, Hall of Famer. You got Anthony Walker, who I like a lot. He's just been a little banged up at this point. Savache Dennis coming off an injury as well. They need to add to the room, and Jahad Campbell would be a great addition. You talk about maybe going from Levante David to Jahad Campbell, let him mentor him for a season. It makes so much sense. I like him a ton as a linebacker who can also blitz a little bit up and down the line. really good football player with a really good athletic profile. And another thing Mel does say is, watch out for a cornerback, and I could see that. I could see Jahdae Barron or Will Johnson here trying to bolster up some depth, which is a problem for them, and it has been a problem for them in that secondary. I think Will Johnson would be a Todd Bowles special as well. And then we go on to the Denver Broncos. Eric McMillan's still on the board. I totally forgot he was available. And with him still on the board, this is an easy one. Like, this is not one I'd even think about because Cortland Sutton is going to last year of his contract. Tetairoa McMillan would be seamless in here as your number one wide receiver going forward in the future. I do think they're going to go wide receiver. I don't think Tetairoa McMillan will actually be available at this pick. You never know, right? And they could end up trading up if they really wanted him. And as I was mentioning, like, this would be an ideal addition for this football team. I could also see Emeka Egbuka, Matthew Golden, like somebody like that. Actually, I think Egbuka would be a really good pick for them, or Luther Burden, like one of those guys. That would be my guess if I had to bet my money on it. I would go with Luther Burden or Emeka Egbuka being their pick when it's all said and done. But McMillan here would be an easy selection for this football team. They've got good, solid weapons in there. You know, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, Devon Vele, and you name it, right? But, like, do they have a true number one guy besides Cortland Sutton in there that they could really use? And, like, talk about Sutton going on last year of his contract. I think that would make a lot of sense. Steelers going Derek Harmon, interior defense lineman from Oregon. I don't mind this one at all, right? You pair him up with Keanu Benton, and then it also allows Cam Hayward to play. You know, you don't have to force him out there to play 100% of the snaps. You can keep him fresh throughout the season. So important. After losing Larry Ogunjobi, you got to find some areas for those snaps to go. Really good pick. I think Harmon is a great player and a high floor player too at that. And then we go to the Chargers. Matthew Golden, the wide receiver from Texas. Another area that the Chargers could easily go after, especially if the top tight ends are off the board. Then getting another weapon for Justin Herbert makes a lot of sense. I could see them going into your defense line, like a Kenneth Grant here too, makes a lot of sense, or a Walter Nolan, especially if, after losing Poona Ford. They're going to need to get some more help on that defense line, some more youth, and locked into that defensive tackle position. And John Harbaugh values those trenches. But if they do want to add another weapon, it is an option. Remember, Mykel Williams is back, but not a long-term deal. And besides Lab McConkey, who else do you feel going? Quentin Johnston hopefully steps up. Overall, could see them going after another wide receiver. I don't know if I see him going first-round wide receiver, but it is something to keep an eye out on. And then we go into the Green Bay Packers. We got Emeka Egbuka here. They got to add another weapon, whether it's first, second, third round. I don't know if Gutekunst is going to go in the first round just because it's not really in his nature. Maybe this is the year he throws us all off. Emeka Egbuka, though, would fit that bill, and if it fit that mold, he is somebody that I think he checks off all the boxes. He's going to be a high-end wide receiver 2, maybe a borderline wide receiver 1, maybe an Amon-Ra, St. Brown type of receiver for a football team. I think that's his upside. And for the Packers, they can use another deep threat, of course. Like, I think in their offense, they throw the ball deep a ton. However, if they want to have a little bit more versatility in the offense, somebody who can be a bit more of a chain mover, well, Emeka Egbuka would be a great add in terms of that contrast. And then we go on to the Minnesota Vikings, Jahdae Barron. And this did one my other day in my mock draft. Even though it'd be a lot of small corners with Isaiah Rodgers and Byron Murphy, it would give you a lot of versatility between Murphy and Barron to be able to play those guys interchangeably in the slot and on the outside. Maybe you want more of a size guy like a Siobhan Revel. I could see that as an option for them too. But secondary clearly is still a pretty big void. Depends on how they feel about Mekhi Blackman too, coming back from an ACL injury. So those are sort of things you have to really think about as well in this cornerback room. Offensive line could be a possibility too for that football team. Houston Texans, Josh Simmons. What a great pick for this Houston. I mean, if you fall right into the lap of Josh Simmons, it's a run to the table scenario, and you're just saying to yourself, thank goodness he got, I mean, I don't want to say that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way, of course, that he got injured. No, never fun to get injured. But for the Houston Texans, you're like, we just got ourselves a top 10 player in this draft class at 25 overall. Maybe like a Jeffrey Simmons sort of thing that they saw with the Tennessee Titans. Now they find Josh Simmons here, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. Great pick to be a interchangeable left tackle. He gives you more grit than Laramie Tunsil as a run blocker too. He's got a lot more oomph in the run blocking game. And he's also a good pass protector. He's got great feet. Moving on to the Rams here, you got Azaria Thomas, the cornerback from Florida State. This is a good pick for them too. I still like Benjamin Morrison. If you're looking for a Killer Witherspoon though type of replacement, I do think Azaria Thomas fits that mold to a T. Like, he is that size guy, that outside, can be physical in man-to-man corner, the man-to-man corner. Now, his tackling, his physicality there needs to improve. Those are things you can coach up, you can teach, and all those sort of things, get a little bit stronger. But he does have the physicality and coverage. Maybe sometimes a little bit too much physicality. I don't think he's overly physical, though. I wouldn't call him like somebody that is like insanely grabby. He's not Joey Porter level grabby or anything like that. He can get called here and there, but I thought he's pretty smooth and very, very sticky in coverage. And the Rams could certainly use another cornerback in that room with Kobe Durant. And then also Dorius Williams getting a little bit older now and figuring out another player on the opposite end there. And then Baltimore Ravens, Malachi Starks, they go get that back center fielder, and that allows Kyle Hamilton to do what Kyle Hamilton does best, roam, rangy, slot, option in the box, in those big nickel packages. Malachi Starks can play in the back with Ardarius Washington, and then, of course, Kyle Hamilton in that slot big nickel role. Really good addition here for this Baltimore Ravens. I can't argue with that pick. I think it's a really good one. If Nick Emanwari... Now, I don't know. I mean, if Nick Emanwari is on the board, would I go with Malachi Starks still over Nick Emanwari? I think I actually would, because of just strictly in what they need in that secondary. And then we go on. Oh, I'm going a little too far, scrolling too fast. I'm curious to see what Mel Kiper's got here for the Commanders, but I got to see what he's got for the Detroit Lions, because I'm also curious. The Lions, they go James Pierce Jr. If this one is, he's on the board, this is another easy selection. You got to get next to the James Pierce Jr. It's over. It's over. I'm in my car right now. It's done. I'm going to go scream. Some people will be looking at me right now. Yo, that'd be insane value. I think this is one of the easiest selections if James Pierce Jr. is on the board. If you're Detroit, you're kind of just like, keep bringing on the circulations of rumors, like keep starting things about James Pierce Jr. so he can fall to you or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, that'd be such a awesome pick for them. And then the Commanders, they go Maxwell Harrison. Okay, they get a cornerback here. I don't know. I mean, pass rush is still a huge name. James Pierce Jr. just went off the board. There's still some really good pass rushers, though, on the board, like Donovan Ezeraku, that I would take here. No problem about it at pick 29. I think Ezeraku's a first-rounder, easy pick. I think he's a top 20 player, actually. Overall, Harrison, good player. I still have a second-round grade on him. I have Benjamin Morrison over him. I have Benjamin Morrison as a top 10 player in the draft class. The injury risk, of course, but Harrison had his own injuries, and he's a smaller guy as well. So that's why I don't know. I think that Benjamin Morrison would be in my selection if you want to go corner, and I'm okay with that. Like Jonathan Jones, 1-year contract, and also Marshawn Lattimore, 1-year deal. You can go and move on if you had to and figure it out. But if you pair up with like Morrison and Mikey Sanders still, like that'd be a really good future 1-2 punch and a lot of youth there in that room. So if you wanted to go cornerback room, like that's where I would go personally if you didn't want to go pass rush here, which pass rush is also a pretty big need for them. Buffalo Bills go Kenneth Graham. I don't mind this one either. I think Kenneth Graham is just a really good football player, and he's going to be a very, very strong one-tech nose tackle in the league. And if you look at Daquan Jones, getting a little bit older now, they did sign Larry Ogunjobi, but long-term wise, if you add in Kenneth Graham next to Ed Oliver, it's just going to make Ed Oliver and Dwayne Carter better football players on that rotation for them on that interior defensive line. So, like, I have no problem with this. Like, this would be a great fit for that defensive line. Add in that big space eater of the future for them. Really good pick, actually. I really do like it. I think it's a super fit up in that middle as a run stopper for them. Really good one, actually. I like that one a lot. I might have to steal that one a couple times. Kansas City Chiefs go Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive tackle from Texas. He's a guy that's kind of just slipping, I think, with prospect fatigue a little bit here. But Banks, very good football player. I do worry a little bit about his balance. Like, that's my one nitpick about Kelvin Banks. I do think he can play tackle. He might be a guard just if he can't clean up some of those balance issues. That can be more of a problem. He does have quick hands, though, and quick enough feet to hang out in the edge, and he doesn't get beat by speed too often, right? It's not like a glaring need. Like some of these other prospects, I think, get beat by speed a little bit more often. Cameron Williams, one example of that, needs to improve his heavy feet at times. But Banks or Josh Connolly Jr., that would be both great selections. I think Connolly would be more the pass-protecting day-one starter in that regard. Banks has a little more run-blocking prowess, like one-on-one, chip on his shoulder type of thing. So it just kind of depends what you're looking for. For the Chiefs, yeah, I probably would choose Josh Connolly, but Kelvin Banks, a very good tackle as well that can pass protect and will step up and be a much improved player. And even with them getting out and going Jalen Moore, it wouldn't be against going after that. Like, they still need to invest in the offensive line. Final pick, Walter Nolan. This is what Howie Roseman does. Continue to value up those trenches. Just scoop them up. And especially, yeah, we're eating all day out here. But even with them bringing in these, defensive linemen and stuff like that through the years, like you show it like each and every year, you can always replenish talent. You can always add guys. Now, edge rushing wise, they should be a good position. They signed Azeez Ojulari. They've got some depth there. Got Josh Uche in there too, maybe as a sixth guy. Like, they have a lot of depth. Obviously, Jalex Hunt, Nolan Smith, and Bryce Huff as your main rotation in there, and Azeez Ojulari. Like, those would be your four guys, I imagine, early on at least. But then you had Walter Nolan to go along with Moro Ojimo in that rotation. You got your two starters with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. Overall, good defensive line. I also could see them looking at potentially a safety here if one of those guys falls to them, if they don't pick up anybody else in free agency, and Nick Emanwari would be a great addition for them, or a Malachi Starks, maybe offensive tackle for the future. Certainly could be in play here if somebody falls. Maybe they like Josh Connolly here at this point too. Overall, not a bad pick. This is what Howie Roseman does. Well, that's going to do it for the great Mel Kiper, the postman. The Oscar goes to Mel Kiper for a good mock draft. A lot of fun. I always enjoy Mel Kiper. I love it or hate it. There's some crazy picks, just like Jaxson Dart in this one. definitely a little interesting. And Jalen Walker, to me, is a little high. Like, there's some I don't agree with at all. But at the end of the day, we all have our agree and disagreement. Nobody's a perfect evaluator prospect. I respect the nature and what he's been able to do through the years and him as a person, all those sort of things. Wish you nothing but the best, Mel, and hope all you guys have a good day out there. Keep it going and go rock out some Mel Kiper today. The Postman vibe.